A very good evening and a warm welcome to this evening's debate, this being the second in a series of debates that we're bringing to you as the SABC in partnership with the universities of Johannesburg and the Durban University of Technology. Now, tonight's discussion is about youth unemployment. What is going on, but more importantly, what do young people representing the four organizations we've brought together here to debate this issue? Between them, they actually polled over 95% of the vote in the 2009 election. So tonight, we're asking them what's in store this coming election. Why are we continuing to have a problem of youth unemployment in a country that has abundant resources, but also where politicians are elected to resolve the problems of our society? Well, without much ado, and to give you a bit of a background to this evening's discussion, here's a little insert I prepared a little earlier. Often useful during fights between and within political parties, South Africa's young people face a rather bleak future. While overall the unemployment rate stands at 25%, a fairly conservative estimate that excludes many young people, the figure stands at a staggering 51% among young people less than 25 years of age. And the racial dimension of the problem is hard to ignore. Certainly, if unemployment is at 63% among African women, 57% among Africans in general, 47% among colored youths, 23% among Indians, and 21% among whites. And, it seems, young people are seeing no light at the end of the tunnel.
I just see politicians as people who want to help themselves because they tell people that they are going to do things for them, hence they don't do those things.
Corruption is the biggest problem in South Africa, I can say it like that, like in my opinion.
Obviously, with this corrupt society, some needs of our youth are not being addressed directly. Some people just want to satisfy their needs, but I think it all goes back to somebody being focused and knowing what they want.
It's about you and where you want to end up. It's about what you decide to do about your life, because eventually you have the final decision, and what you are determined to do, you'll finally get to that place where you want to be.
The situation leaves the problem in the hands of young people themselves. But do they have what it takes to take the future into their own hands? Vuyo Mvoko, SABC News. Well, let's start with the ANC. Mawethu Khune is the head of the ANC Youth League's elections campaign. Mr. Khune, the situation is not getting any better. And I guess the question a lot of people are asking you is, you should be having an influence on what the ruling party says. Do you really have that influence? And when you meet the elders, shall I call them, of your political party, do you actually raise youth issues sharply, in particular the problem of unemployment?
Thanks. Well, let me direct on responding on the question. First is that I think, as an insight puts it, the youth unemployment in South Africa is structural. And that structural youth unemployment has a racial dimension in it. And that's why we then say it is a structural one. Yes, it's true. The fact that in South Africa, the problem we have is not particular in South African context. Throughout the globe, we are confronted with an issue of a youth unemployment, as it were. And the direct question would be, what is it then that the ANC government and the Youth League, through its influence and engagement with the ANC, has done?
That's the question I asked. What are you doing about it?
Yes.
I think the scenario you've just outlined now is what we know. Government has been telling us, economists have been telling us this problem, the influence of market forces and how we, but from where you sit, are you doing something about it as young people who are, in fact, a youth wing of the most powerful political party in the country today? Where is the evidence that you guys are actually raising this issue sharply with your political party?
Thanks. The evidence will be that since 1995, for example, 1.7 new million jobs have been created for young people. Currently, 6.1 million jobs. As we speak now, young people are employed. 2.7 billion of loans and grants have been given to youth entrepreneurship on NYDA, on IDC and CIFA. On the National Rural Youth Service Corps, 14,000 now are actually being absorbed. If you go to education, because the skilling of youth is quite important. As we speak now, 9 billion of young people access NSFAS Institute of Higher Learning. And the point probably for today is that as we go forward, what is it that the government of the ANC, what is it that the Youth League has pursued? You would know in the...
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there and ask Mbali whether from what she has heard, from you now, she thinks we are on the right path. Do you think the youth unemployment problem is being addressed by the ANC government?
I've heard nothing from the ANC Youth League. But what I can say is that the issue of youth unemployment starts from all the problems that we have in society. So for education, then we must get into how young people are able to access opportunities and how those opportunities are able to help them get jobs, and then and the only party that has proved that it's actually able to do this is the Democratic Alliance, and we've only been in government for 5 years in the Western Cape.
Where have you done this? I see them booing you.
So, I mean, I agree with you, Vuyo Wuti. My colleague here has outlined the problem, but what we need to know and what we need to hear from the ANC Youth League is that what are they saying about the corruption that is taking 30 billion away from young people every single year, according to their own Auditor General. That will give 9 billion. The DA is saying we would give more than that. We'd give 16 billion to make sure that every single qualifying matric is able to get into university. On top of that, we've established opportunity centers, we've given opportunity cards, because we know for young people what we need to be doing is creating opportunities where they can actually become entrepreneurs, where we can make sure that there's no red tape, but most importantly that there's not corruption that is going to hinder young people's futures in this country, unlike the ANC.
Well, Abel Rangata is in fact the chairperson of the COPE Youth Movement. From where you sit, the ANC says, actually, we're doing very well, thank you. The DA says, we've done well in the Western Cape where we are a government. Are you sharing his views?
I don't agree with what the ANC is saying. I don't agree with what the ANC is saying, because they have failed the young people through the NYDA, because resources were channeled through that particular institution. They were actually pillaged by friends of the Youth League. They have spent more than 100 million doing nothing. As COPE was saying, we want to provide... We don't agree with what the ANC Youth League is saying in terms of improving the socio-economic conditions of young people. They have failed. They have pillaged more than 100 million through the NYDA. Even today, that money is not even accounted for. As Congress of the People, we are saying, we want to offer entrepreneurship to the young people, because entrepreneurship will stimulate the economy and make sure that young people, they are self-employed and create many jobs for other young people. Unlike what the ANC is doing, we are going to replace the entrepreneurship with the entrepreneurship for the youth of South Africa to be dependent.
Thank you very much. Well, representing the IFP Youth Brigade is its chairperson, Nkululeko Hlengwa. Mr. Hlengwa, you heard what the ANC said. You heard what the DA had to say. You heard what COPE has to say. Once upon a time, the IFP was a government in KwaZulu-Natal. Did you demonstrate what could be done when you were in power?
Thank you very much, Vuyo. Well, when you speak of that government, we must remember that it was a co-government. And when the ANC Youth League is howling there, they must remember that that was our government together with them. And therefore, if they want to throw stones, they throw stones at their own institution. But let's move away from that.
Well, I'm hoping, before you move on, well, I'm hoping then you're not going to say to the ANC that Okay, I'm saying you then going to have to share some of the problems that the ANC has, because once upon a time you did co-govern. You were part of the government of national unity.
Oh, no, of course. You see, the beauty is that we've never shied away from reality. And we don't shy away from the achievements of the past 20 years. But let's put this election in particular...
So are you then prepared to take the responsibility
well,
of some of the problems?
Can I finish? May I finish? Okay. If you would be so kind, thank you. Let's put these elections in context. These elections are not about the past 20 years. They're about the past 5 years. 5 years of failure, 5 years of incompetence, 5 years of outright corruption. But beyond that, these elections are about the future. And it is young people who need to be at the center of correcting the wrongs of the past 5 years. Why do I say that? In 1999, President Mandela accounted for his 5 years. In 2004, President Mbeki accounted. 2009, President Mohlante accounted for President Mbeki. We are waiting President Zuma to account. Well, he's not going to. You know why? Because there's nothing to say. So, whilst the ANC has been very good at articulating the problem, it's their problem. They have caused it with their wishy-washy policies. One day the youth wage subsidy is on the table. The next day, because COSATU says we don't want it, they say, well, maybe let's put it on hold. We have been through this over and over again, where if the union sneeze, we all catch the cold. Well, we're fed up with it, and people are fed up with it. They've said it there, and the corruption in this country stinks to the rafters. And we can never take the ANC seriously until President Zuma, we will never take the ANC seriously on the question of corruption until President Zuma has accounted for the 753 or so corruption charges. Instead of getting into court, is getting out of court.
That's on a quick point of clarity. Are you saying that when you said President Mandela accounted for his term, President Mbeki accounted for his term, and President Motlanthe accounted for part of President Mbeki's term? Are you saying you were happy with those 15 years, but you're unhappy about the past 5 years?
We are saying we have seen the good that has been done. Progress has been made. That is the spirit of constructive opposition in which the IFP operates. Where they do good, they know in Parliament they've got our support where they do good. But at the same time, we've got a responsibility to the electorate and the constituents of South Africa to hold any government, whether it's an ANC government or a DA government or a COPE government, hold them to account, and they must be willing to account. The problem with this government that we have refuses point blank to account. So moving forward, an IFP government, first and foremost, will be accountable to the people that elected it.
Okay, we are going to debate the points that you've raised further. That's when we come back after this quick commercial break.
Designed to celebrate 20 years of freedom and the next generation of dreamers.
This is Afro Showbiz News, the show that brings you all things art and entertainment from around the African continent. A new fashion line has been started by ex-Big Brother contestant Bokelo, who teamed up with her partner Elegim to launch the brand. The Queen of Swagger line was launched under the already existing Elegim Komodzi, the Taylor brand. Zimbabwean performers Umkati Theatre Works were highly well received at the Brooklyn Academy of Music 36th season of Dance Africa in New York, USA.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
gaming enthusiasts, including us here at Network, indulged in over 80 exhibits that included the Xbox One and Nintendo. Visitors also got to try out PlayStation 4 computer entertainment system, which was unveiled at Rage 2013.
I just came here to see the Xbox One and the PS4, see which one I'd buy.
If you have close to 400,000 Rand to spare, then you can buy the new UHD TV set. Samsung has launched cheaper models, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean cheap. South Africa has just received the country's first surgical robot, but the robot isn't quite taking over from your surgeon just yet.
That's Network, Sundays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Mercedes-Benz is all what you can expect from a lifestyle brand itself. We are about premium and luxury, we're about fascination, perfection, at the same time responsibility to our communities.
You know, my father was a musician and he loved music. He loved especially choral music.
Now, as a person of color, you can't hit on her like, hello, nice.
Man, they were a great audience. No, I had so much fun performing for them.
Baby, I love.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, you're watching and listening to a national debate on youth unemployment. This series is brought to you today by SABC News in partnership with the Universities of Johannesburg and the Durban University of Technology. Now, we had, I'm going to ask Professor Dr. Blessing Karumbidza from the Durban University of Technology. Now, you've heard what these young people who are on this panel had to say about what their parties are doing in trying to address the problem of youth unemployment, but also what they think of each other. In the studies that you've done as a university and from conversations with your fellow academic colleagues, are they on the money in their analysis of the problem, but also in their assessment of their own performance, but also in other parties' performance of the ruling, or shall I say, ruling parties?
Yes and no, Vio. I think that unemployment is a big problem in the country is neither here nor there. It is indeed a timing bomb. We have seen the radicalization of the youth and leading also to the other side, the demonization of those who would dare say something about it. What I'm not hearing is that why does employment have to remain the only main thing that can bring people their dignity? We do not hear in most of these debates discussion around capital redress, that which can make the people of South Africa, black, white, colored, whatever color, particularly the youth, be able to go and participate in the economy. From the statistics that you started with in the inset, what we do not hear is the breakdown of the unemployment in its entirety. The youth unemployment is structured in the following manner. We have the working class youth unemployment, you have black youth unemployment, you have rural black youth unemployment, you have rural black women unemployment, which makes that structure a bit more difficult to buy the discussion from the ANC that says, look, after all, this thing is global. Yes, it is global. But in some places in the world, just 9-10% unemployment will raise a big major problem. We have areas of unemployment where we have not even started to have a conversation about. The work I do focuses mostly in the rural areas and the informal economy. We have not, as South Africa, started to go into making sure that the rural agricultural sector continues to provide the jobs that it does. But if you look from 1994, what we see is the sliding down of the capacity of commercial agriculture to employ, but in the absence of land reform and capital redress, you do not even have the new farmers having the capacity to start absorbing the rural unemployed people. Just quickly in closing on this part, the people who are unemployed, we also need to point out that it's mostly the less literate people. Those are where much of the unemployment is. And very few on top at the highest qualified people who are unemployed. But if you look at the foreign youth who come to South Africa and are able to make a living within the same South Africa, that the South African black youth are not coping. The question that the parties may want to ask is, what is it that these youths are equipped with to be able to survive where our own youth cannot?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dr. Karumbidza is, of course, from the Durban University of Technology. Mr. Khune, if I hear the prof correctly, but if I also hear what the other panelists have said, you're simply not doing enough, and you should stop blaming the world.
Thanks. Well, to the prof, because the three panelists, they are yet to present anything to debate about. To the prof, yes, it's true. The fact that as the Youth League and the ANC government, we have not hidden the fact that youth unemployment is a problem. It is a structural problem that must be confronted. I want quickly to say now, what is it that the ANC government from 7th May, because all here they are aware that it is the ANC that after 7th May will be in government. Now, on 7th May, the ANC says, we have rolled out infrastructure program, 1 trillion put aside for infrastructure program. Out of that, it says 60% of those projects must go to young people. It says beyond that, on an extended public works program, it says out of 6 million job opportunities in extended public works program, 4 million of those would go to young people. It says as it relates to you'd know only this week the allotment of land claims have been reopened. You'd know that the rural young people corps are actually going to be at 50,000. But in all those appreciated is the fact that you must kill young people. That's why every workplace will be a training space. That's why we further say, the education, not only of those who are in tertiary, we have more than 80% of no-fee schools, so that an African child can be equipped with skill, can be equipped with education, so that an African child too can benefit from the economy of this country and wealth of South Africa.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you, Mbali Ntuli, from the Democratic Alliance, this question. We've seen you marching to COSATU about jobs. We've seen you marching on the ANC again about jobs. The question is perhaps, shouldn't you, instead of marching to the ANC or to COSATU, shouldn't we have said, here's what we're doing in the Western Cape, and this is proof beyond any reasonable doubt that we actually can do better. But a lot of people say it's a claim that you're making, but not necessarily backed by any facts.
Vuyo, it's a claim that we make because it's true. And the ANC government itself will tell you that year after year for the last 5 years that we've been in government, we have proven that the youth unemployment is the lowest in the Western Cape and everywhere else that we govern, like Midwell, for example. We will also show that we are creating 1 million jobs for young people across the board. Before the ANC was even brave enough to implement the Youth Wage Incentive Act, we were already having our work and skills program, which was making sure that young people were able to gain experience and get real jobs, unlike what the ANC is offering, which are jobs as of namhlanje ephele kusasa. What we're saying as abantu abasha ukuthi no young person can vote for the ANC and put them back into government because they have proved over the last 5 years that they are not willing to give us jobs. In fact, they've lost 1.4 million jobs when the Democratic Alliance has shown that we are giving opportunity cards, we are giving business to small entrepreneurs, specifically women, specifically African women, and especially young people. And to answer the professor on land reform and the informal sector, the Democratic Alliance again is leading in that very sector because we have taken it as a strategic objective of our government to make sure that young people who cannot access the formal sector are actually taken care of. And that's part of our manifesto and part of our offer for young people.
Why then are the people of Guguletu, the people of Nyanga, marching on the TA government?
I'll tell you.
If there was so much
I will tell you
out of
exactly who's
what you've
marching.
done.
The people that are marching are the ANC Youth League and the people that are being led by the ANC Youth League to try and destabilize the Western Cape government. Because the fact of the matter, Vuyo, is that people in this country are marching everywhere. We have 566 protests that we've already had because people in this country are marching everywhere against ANC government. And the only marches that are happening in the Western Cape are the ones that are led by the ANC Youth League, whose members have now been arrested and have been charged for leading those kind of marches.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold it. I'm going to ask, just for the people at home, remember you can actually join this discussion by sending us an email, elections@sabc.co.za, elections@sabc.co.za, but you can also SMS your views. The number is 33726, 33726, and you can begin your message with the word vote. SMSs are charged at R1.50. Or you can send us tweets. The hashtag is SABC Elections. You can also find us on Facebook at SABC News Online. So do send those tweets, do send those emails, do send those SMSs. We will be back right after this short ad break.
There's a champion in all men. They have skill and courage. They have power. They have spirit. And they deserve their reward. Carling Black Label. Champion men deserve champion beer.
Sometimes a lot of people, in fact, do not have access firstly to palliative care. Secondly, even if they do,
So what? Do we just kill them if they don't have access to palliative care?
I think she's actually crucifying my question, with all due respect.
If you actually actively assist somebody to die, then you are convicted of murder.
Who should take the burden of terminating a life?
It's very problematic for doctors to play God.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Good afternoon, you're watching the news at 1.
Now, one of South Africa's largest education departments has a new boss.
I will also motivate learners to love learning.
Yesterday, the lobby group lost yet another court bid to have the system halted.
Global wealth has risen by 68% over the past 10 years. That's according to a new Credit Suisse report. Well, it seems there's more gloomy forecasts in the foreseeable future for South Africa's economy.
We need to sort out this mess in the labour market.
That's News at 1, daily at 1 p.m. on SABC News.
Program in which we showcase different aspects of government.
The Northern Cape is a land of many diverse cultures, of frontier history and brave missionaries. It also has countless challenges.
The Northern Cape has been plagued by especially alcohol abuse, rape and common assault and things like that.
More opportunities are being created each year to benefit all in the region.
This is a nation at work.
Welcome back. This debate is indeed live on SAFM, SABC 1, Channel 404, as well as SABC News Online. And tonight, we're discussing youth unemployment. Now, just a reminder that to you at home, if you are listening to us on SAFM or watching us on SABC 1 or Channel 404, you can send us emails, elections@sabc.co.za, or you can send an SMS to 33726, 33726. An SMS will cost you R1.50, and you can start with the word vote. Now, before I proceed, I want to give an opportunity to other people who are also part of this discussion. I'm going to invite the Minority Front, Jonathan Peters. This is a party that has a strong presence here in KwaZulu-Natal, where we are holding this national debate. It must be emphasized that this is not a regional debate. Simply because we are here doesn't mean that we are trying to regionalize this issue. Yes, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Vuyo. It is a fact, ladies and gentlemen, that draconian legislation has marginalized minority youth in this country. The two major factors around this is affirmative action and quota systems in schools. The Minority Front Youth Association is therefore calling on government to scrap affirmative action and the quota systems. Young people with exceptional results cannot gain entry into university. Those who do get entry into university cannot find decent jobs because of affirmative action. The Minority Front Youth Association is championing for this born-free generation to have equal opportunities for all people. Equal opportunities that's based purely on merit at tertiary institutions and in the workplace, particularly in government organizations. Government must provide equal opportunities to all people so that we can have sustainable development in our economy and in social spheres. Government's notion to create 6 million jobs at a time when the rand is so volatile is most unreasonable. Furthermore, if the assumption is achievable, the most pertinent question for the minority community is what percentage of this minority group will benefit from government's expanded public works program?
Okay, let me ask you to hold your thoughts right there, because I want others to actually comment on some of the points you've raised. You've actually raised. Mr. Hlengwa, do you share the view that affirmative action should actually be done away with?
Well, you see, we mustn't view these things in isolation and in a vacuum. It's part of a package. What is it that is going to redress South Africa? And most importantly, what is it that is going to benefit young people? So at the end of the day, if you speak of affirmative action, you must be able to contextualize it in the type of education system that you are providing. Now, 30% pass rate under this government sets up young people for failure. And at the end of it, you want to correct that failure with affirmative action. You don't do justice to affirmative action by setting it up for failure, by having in place institutions such as an education system which needs a total overhaul and professionalize the teaching profession, have a world-class curriculum which responds to the needs of the job market and responds to what is needed in society. So at the end of it all, whether affirmative action is here or there, that is very little comfort if the feeder into the programs and processes of affirmative action are as poor as they are. So we must not approach a piecemeal developmental approach, because in doing so we waste money, we waste time, we waste resources, and young people lose hope.
Mr. Rangata?
Congress of the People is saying what is fundamental for youth to get employment is training and skill development. Yes, the education that is provided to young people in South Africa, the standard is very low, whereby you have learners passing standard 10 with 33% means that these learners, they have learned 33% of their work. As Kobwa said, we must be able to improve the standard so that we can produce qualitative graduates. Do
you support affirmative action or not?
The affirmative action, yes, it's important to be implemented, but it must not be implemented in a manner whereby other people will be actually excluded. You understand? It must be the affirmative action. It must be implemented. The government must roll it, but it should not actually be done at the expense of young people.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts right there. I'm going to ask someone from the... I'm going to ask Zola Sapeta from the Unemployed Graduates Association whether, in fact, listening to these political parties, it's giving them any comfort that this issue is, in fact, being addressed. And perhaps more importantly, whether these four parties, which collectively, and I'm going to repeat this, collectively between them, these four parties have 95% of this country's vote. And I guess the question perhaps we should be asking you is whether after all the politicking, or at some point you will put the politicking aside and as young people come together and actually craft, you know, a kind of a blueprint, if you like, or the kind of plan that you can give to your elders. In other words, forgetting that you are DA, you are ANC, you are IFP, and you are COPE, to say, this is what is the most important thing that needs to be done for our young people. And we'll get to that question. I'm going to ask each and every one of you whether, in fact, that is what you should be doing. But let's hear from the Unemployed Graduates Association.
Sanibona. Njani? Igama lami ngusizwe Shiba ngivela eMjondolo eMlazi. Ngicabanga ukuthi ngiyezwa ama presentation akhona kuyezwakala kahle yonke into kodwa ke khona ifika ishaya khona kancane. Akuzwakala engathi bayabheka kahle kahle ukuthi ngempela into eyikhozi yokuthi amazinga ongasebenzi kwabantu eziwe mangaka kwenzakala kanjani. Ingakho ukuthina lento izifike nje ngendlela ukuthi engathi kunabantu abazuzayo ngokungasebenzi kwabantu. Indlela
Who are those?
Indlela enga-understandeki ngayo nendlela engathathela ngayo phezulu iyakhulu ithathela phezulu kodwa manje asiboni ukuthi kwenzakala kanjani. Kukhulunywa ngendaba ama-co-op, ugovernment ukhuluma ngendaba ama-co-op kodwa lama-co-op aswaboni. Gcine kukhulunywa ngayo emaredweni, ku-advertiswa ngawo kodwa thina swaboni. Uma ubathe yalandela uthola ukuthi awasizi labantu kumele ngabe abasiza. Kodwa ubona kunabantu lokhu besukuma nje, lokhu besukuma labantu kibona bona abahluphekayo. Kunenkinga kubona. Bese ubheka futhi kakhulukazi lezi ndawo kukhulunywa ngazo kugcwele imjondolo kakhulu. Ayikho indawo engenayo imjondolo. Kukhomba ukuthi izinga labantu abangasebenzi noma ugovernment wethu akasithatha isinqumo sokuthi abheke ukuthi kwenza njani ngabantu kibona abantu abasenkingeni. Ngiphinde ngisuke lapho ngiye Western Cape.
Mr. Shaw, before you continue, can I ask you a very quick one?
Yes.
What are you talking about? Who are these people benefiting from you being unemployed?
Abantu kumele ngabe babenefita. Abantu kumele ngabe benefita. Kumele ngabe ugovernment wethu ucabangela abantu abasuka phansi, ucabangela abantu abaphansi ukubona abantu abavotayo. Hayi uyibona abantu aphezulu. Kodwa indlela esibheka ngayo manje, sibheka sengathi ugovernment wethu akasabheki labantu ukubona abaphansi abavota ukubona abantu abahluphekile. Usibheka labantu abaphezulu kuphela.
I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts right there. Prof, very briefly.
Thank you, Vuyo. I think when I cannot vote, so I can respond to this. I cannot vote legally. I see a minority front person who is actually a constitutional majority. And I ask myself, does the minority front actually have a true minority representative? Because how can someone who is, the statistics cannot lie. White and Indian people in South Africa have lesser levels of unemployment compared to the black counterparts. So how can you be a minority that is actually constitutionally a majority because you're also black and part of that affirmative action? What is the problem with the affirmative action is that it has actually is being implemented in an unstructured, in a situation that has not been restructured and reorganized to allow those that it should benefit. And quickly, affirmative action is normally talked about by those who oppose it as if it's a negative thing. It is actually a managed access issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Karumbidza from the Durban University of Technology. We are continuing with this conversation. You are indeed watching us live on SABC 1, Channel 404, SAFM, and SABC News Online. We'll be back right after this short ad break.
Zoom into Africa. This is Mali. The president is Mr. Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. Mali got independent from France on 20 June in 1960. The population is more than 16 million people. One of Mali's major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit is CFA.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
When you cross the line, what went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew where it won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
With so many bad incidents happening around us, we continue sourcing, unpacking and televising nation-building and compassionate stories. From the nation's pride, those who go all out, top achievers, hard workers, those dedicated to making this country a better place, and unusual friendships. Catch all these and more on SABC News.
Welcome back. You are watching and listening to a national debate on youth unemployment in this country. Various political parties, of course, putting their views across, some defending their governments, some saying they can, in fact, do better than others given a chance. But also the Durban University of Technology also talking to this issue through facts that some of the academics in this institution have the work that they have done in this particular area. Let's go and let's hear what some of you are saying on Twitter. I agree with Comrade Khune that the unemployment crisis is structural and is as a result of neoliberal education. That's Tolika Sbia. Tolani Ngweka is saying the ANC Youth League is not concerned at all about affairs of the youth of this land. They are concentrating on ANC. Mkhokeli Bandla saying, what do they have to say about labor brokers as they continue to kill the youth of South Africa? Ndoweni Malala saying, she fails to admit that the protesters have valid complaints. Zugo Mandlakazi saying, I'm not an EFF member, but why is the EFF not part of the panel as it's one of the major opposition parties? Well, some of your tweets there, please do keep them coming. This debate is live on SAFM, SABC 1, SABC News Online, as well as Channel 404. Now, I want to go to the issue of the youth wage subsidy, which you as the ruling party have been lukewarm to, but in the end, the government did sort of have the courage or the guts to actually go ahead and implement it. Do you really think that it's going to address the problem of youth unemployment in the manner envisaged?
Can I address two things? Firstly, your question. The part of the problem we have in South Africa is that while the private sector continues to make profits, continues to make a lot of money, have not come to the party in employing young people, in training young people, in make sure that we transform the economy of this country.
What should they have done?
Part of what needed to be done is what is on the, which is the second point I'm making, on the Youth Employment Accord, that the youth organizations of this country signed, including DA Youth.
Well, I was about to say that she was a signature. Her signature is in fact there.
It's not her. They voted out the one who signed.
No,
That
we
was
didn't.
wrong to sign that accord.
You can't
So
talk about
that's why
things you
she's
don't
here.
know.
The point to make is that on the Youth Employment Accord, the private sector, which is a signatory of, actually affirms the fact that young people are not trained in the private sector, although the private sector continues to be the main beneficiary of graduates of government, that government invests upon these young people of this country. The economy of this country remains lily white, that is highly monopolized, that the entry levels are very difficult and are high.
I guess the question is perhaps why are you letting a private sector that does in fact a lot of business with your government to get away with it?
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That's why now, if you read the ANC manifesto, the ANC manifesto says, out of the infrastructural projects that are rolled out, the 60% of those must be manufactured locally. And that is therefore using the instrument of the public investment and the public purse to actually pursue and force the issue of transformation. On this Tuesday, we'll be meeting with JSE to actually raise the issues of the fact that we don't think as young people the private sector is committed to see to it that it comes to the party and respond to the structural issues and challenges that we have in South Africa.
Bali, the Democratic Alliance does support the youth wage subsidy.
The Democratic Alliance has always supported the youth wage subsidy because we believe that it was one of the ways that we could get our young people to be able to get experience and then be able to actually enter the formal economy, because right now you can't be able to do that. The ANC was unable to have the courage to fight against COSATU when they tried to stop it, and now what we have is a youth wage subsidy or youth incentive act that has been implemented for only 2 years, and the minister can get to change it whenever he wants. So it's not even going to have the right benefits for young people as we had originally envisioned because the ANC was cowards about it. I'm very happy that he's brought up the private sector because it must be an ANC problem. Because in the Western Cape,
shouldn't you accept that at the end, right now, as we speak, it is being implemented?
and we appreciate that and we say thank you, but it had to take 3 years of fighting by all opposition parties to get it there, which means that the ANC has no teeth if it has to fight against its own alliance partners.
Well, let me
but I
bring
want
that,
to speak
let
on
me,
the
I
private
want you to hold your
sector.
thoughts right there, because I'm going to bring in someone who's opposed to this, and the two of you are going to have to defend this. Where's Kosat? Where's Kosat? Okay, they're not here yet, because I was going to ask them why they are so opposed to this whole
just
issue.
respond to this
Before you
last
do that,
issue?
I'm going to ask these two gentlemen, Cope and the IFP, to actually talk about, to state their position on the youth wage subsidy, whether in fact it is going to address fundamentally some of the problem, this problem of youth unemployment.
It's going to be a palliative measure in terms of reducing the unemployment level in South Africa. As Cope was saying, we need actually permanent measures that can deal away with unemployment levels
But
in
do you
South Africa.
support the youth wage subsidy?
The way, as we don't support it because it has failed in Australia, where you have got young people who would be employed by private companies for a particular period of time, and they go back to the street being unemployed. It's going to be a vicious cycle, you understand? You are not going to deal with unemployment. But we are saying the government must be able to provide finances for startup entrepreneurship, which actually is going to be enable these young people to employ. It's a measure that is going to deal with unemployment in a
Mr. Fengo?
No, look, the issue here is what lessons do we learn out of a painful episode of wishy-washy, toing and froing, flip-flopping and whatever. At the end of it all, young people are not represented adequately and properly in government. Where is the youth ministry in the youth department? Instead, you've got an ad hoc approach of umjondolo NYDA outside, and young people must come into the main house and say, can you please have this, can you please have this, at the behest of those in the house, and we find ourselves outside. It can't go on, it's not right. Now, the painful episode of the youth wage subsidy results out of that there's nobody sitting there ensuring that the issues of young people at an executive level are being addressed. So the NYDA one needs a total overhaul, or you scrap the whole thing. You form a youth ministry, or then you convert the NYDA into a program implementing entity of that department, so that at the very least you begin to throwing the youth problems into one basket and have a dedicated entity to deal with it. Secondly, the youth wage subsidy, yes, it is a single measure, but it's not a silver bullet. But in the circumstances of high unemployment, 7 million people unemployed, it is a step in the right direction, but still needs to form part. So you do support it? No, we support the youth wage subsidy. Thank you very much.
Well, we are going to take another quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
Zoom into Africa. This is Libya. The chairman of the General National Congress is Mr. Nouri Abu Samen. Libya got independent from Italy on 10 February in 1947. The population is more than 6 million people. One of Libya's major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit, Libyan dinar.
What time is it? It's question time.
Where are these 144,000 people? Are they only in the Jehovah's Witnesses?
To be honest, that is a question that God only can answer.
But you are more than 144,000, which means the rest are not going to the kingdom.
They are going to live on the earth.
That's question time with me, Mpotsedu, Monday to Saturday, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
With so many bad incidents happening around us, we continue sourcing, unpacking and televising nation-building and compassionate stories. From the nation's pride, those who go all out, top achievers, hard workers, those dedicated to making this country a better place, and unusual friendships. Catch all these and more on SABC News.
Good day and welcome to yet another evening of Afro Showbiz News. Award-winning French film Rust and Bone has opened in South Africa. The film was nominated for this year's Golden Globe Awards in the United States of America. The heart of Mali fashion is to use hand-dyed fabrics. The method of West African nation is one of the most rare ways of coloring the country's Bazin fabric. The film The President, How Do I Know It's Time to Go, has caused controversy in Cameroon. It is based on the true story of the country's president.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You are watching and listening to a national debate on youth unemployment. This debate brought to you by SABC News, the Durban University of Technology, as well as the University of Johannesburg. Now, I'm going to ask all four of you to actually tell the nation today whether, in fact, it is impossible for you to come together and talk about a national program where you are going to deal decisively with this issue. You're going to interrogate it with all the might and the power, the resources, the minds, everything that you've got, you're going to throw at it, but as united young people, not as political parties that are campaigning for the May 7 election. Let me start with you, Mr. Khuna. Very briefly, I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Thanks. We believe that as young people, we met, we had discussions, a product of that to respond to issues of youth unemployment include very centrally the Youth Employment Accord, which all the organs of young people are signatory of. What it speaks to, it's a public sector, and in public sector now we have NDP, we have EPAP, we have New Growth Path, extended public programs. Private sector, we say, must come to the party in this instance. Young people who are entrepreneurs, who are in small business must be supported in ensuring that those young people succeed.
And you are asking Mbali to join you.
The Democratic Alliance is very willing to work with anybody who is going to be able to actually make sure that there's no corruption in this country, that we're giving jobs to young people, that we're giving opportunities to young people, that we're making sure that young people are able to access the economy and have economic growth. Any party that is not willing to go by that is not a party that we can engage with, because they're not serious and they're not committed to actually making sure young people in this party...
Are you prepared to stand up and actually call Mawetu and say, let's sit down?
We do it all the time, but the fact of the matter is we all agree on the problem. The problem is we cannot agree on the same solution because certain parties have their own interests.
Thank you. Very briefly.
Congress of the People is willing to work with everyone, not people who will actually come and discuss cater deployment.
Yes.
Not people who will actually speak about the billions of rands which are going to disappear in the pockets of individuals at the end of the day. We are saying we must work together as young people so that we can provide the government to the people of South Africa, by the people, for the people, with the people, not the government for themselves in support of them.
Thanks, Royal. Your question is very relevant, and the Youth Brigade, as the mature lot of the youth wings, we have written to all of them. Some have responded positively. We've met with the DA, we've met with COPE. We are waiting a response from the Youth League, probably as they are changing leadership. And because we firmly believe, I alluded earlier to the principle of constructive opposition. At the end of the day, we need to rise above petty political divides as young people, grow up, be mature, and what is also important is this.
Let me stop you right there because we have run out of time. I apologize for this. Doc, very briefly.
When we fought to end apartheid, there was a word we used. It was revolution. Post-apartheid, we became uncomfortable with revolution. We talk democracy because it brings in foreign investors. The problem is that the private sector's primary mandate is to make profit, not to meet people's political mandates.
You need a revolution. Well, we are going to leave it at that. We need a revolution. Hopefully, the young people who are representing 95% of the vote who are gathered here will actually take that point home and to their elders and to their parties. For now, we're going to leave it right there. Thanks very much for watching and listening to this debate. Join us again next week, same time.